Hello and welcome back to Politically Incorrect. I'm Tom Christiano. Well, tonight we have an outstanding group of town leaders on the show, but not just to discuss town issues. We're going to begin talking about some of the national and state political races that are ongoing, including the presidential race, the U.S. Senate race, maybe the race for Congress, and then we'll talk about last night's town meeting. We're taping this show on October 16th, 2012, exactly 3 weeks before the presidential election. So unfortunately, there's a second presidential debate, which is going to be tonight, so we aren't going to have the ability of seeing that when we tape this show. So I'll mention that, though, before we talk about that particular presidential race. So with me tonight, we have Jon Kurland. How are you, John?
I'm well. How are you, Tom?
Good, thanks.
Carmen.
All right,
Carmen.
both.
Old habits die hard.
No, but both is good. I always let people call me Tom, Carmen, Carm, even if it's one syllable is nice.
Okay, Carm.
I like
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I like the Carm.
Carm is nice, I think. Yeah, but so Jon Kurland, as everyone knows, is the chairman of the Chelmsford Board of Selectmen, and town meeting representative is at Precinct 1 still, right, John? Or no? Did you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
I used to be 5.
5, but now it's 1. Now it's 1.
So this is my first term as 1.
Great. Anything?
We're number
else?
1.
Exactly. Well, thanks for being here, John.
Our pleasure. My pleasure.
Great. We have a great group tonight. And thank you for being back. Oh, by the way, John, I'm sorry. This is your 8th time on the show, so lucky number 8.
But who's counting?
Right.
Yeah, but who's counting? You're on
Seems
my
like
Excel
more,
spreadsheet.
doesn't it?
Yeah. And we also have my friend Laurie Myers on with us tonight. How are you, Laurie?
I'm great. How about you?
Good. Good. Thanks. And this is your 4th time on the show,
Right.
Laurie.
I was trying to remember how
So
many
we got to
times I had
get
been
you up
on.
a little higher. Maybe
Yeah.
if you run for selectman sometime or something,
maybe.
that
We'll see.
we'll get way up then.
Add that to the other things.
And
we're doing,
and as a selectman, John knows, as a selectman, you come on much more often.
right.
Yes,
I
I've come
think.
on 8 times.
There's a good
Yeah, right.
run right there.
And,
Really going, John.
and Laurie is the president of Community Voices.
I am.
And could you tell us what Community Voices is and maybe introduce Wenna?
Sure, we're
Wenna, her dog, Wenna, is here tonight.
That's right. She's resting. But we're a child protection and victim advocacy organization, easy for me to say. So we advocate for victims through the various stages of the criminal justice system. And we recently brought Wenna on board, and she's a 2-year-old black lab, and we use her to comfort victims throughout the criminal justice system in support groups and stuff like that. So Wenna.
In court,
She's
so here's
actually
Wenna.
the
Could you
first
see
dog
Wenna here?
allowed in court. Yeah, Wenna, sit.
Yeah.
Come on. Don't
Sit, Wenna.
Good girl.
Hey,
That's a
Wenna,
good
you see
girl.
Wenna
So this
here?
is Wenna.
Okay.
Wenna.
Hey,
Visit.
Wenna.
Come on, visit.
So
So,
you
she's,
go to
she's
court
a very
with the-
calming influence
Does he stay
on
with
victims.
is it generally always young people? Does he go with older people as
Yeah,
well
older
in
people
court?
and younger people.
And younger
Anybody,
people-
you know,
anybody
who
who wants-
requests her. Yeah,
That's
she
not-
does
so he
very well
sit-
with young
He sits there.
children. While in the courthouse,
In the
in
courthouse?
public areas of the courthouse, just as a comfort. And that's, you know, she's a service-trained dog, and she knows over 40 commands. But she's a very calming presence for people who are very stressed in a
Isn't
stressed
that
environment.
wonderful?
So she's been incredible.
Well,
So.
she's been calming for me on the show so far.
She's very good at her
I
job.
think she's wonderful. She's so
Calmest
loving.
one here.
Yeah, she's a calmest
very
one. She's
well
doing great.
behaved.
Well,
So.
thanks for bringing her on the show tonight. You know, this is the first time I think we've had a dog on the show.
Well, there you go.
I'll have to add her to my Excel spreadsheet.
That's right.
First time on the show, Wenna.
See how many times we can get her to
Hey,
come on.
Wenna.
Good girl.
Hey, thanks for being here, Wenna.
Good girl.
Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you.
And we have my friend Nick DeSilvio with us tonight. How are you, Nick?
Very good, Carmen. How are you?
Good, good, thanks. And Nick is 6th time on the show. And Nick, as everyone knows, the vice chairman of the Chelmsford School Committee.
Actually, I'm not the vice chair this
Not you?
year around. No, Mike Rigney is the vice chair. I'm just an ordinary
Oh, an ordinary
member,
school committee
an ordinary,
member.
yep.
How many years has it been now?
This is my 4th year.
4th year, yeah.
Yep.
So you're also town meeting representative, right?
Precinct 5.
Great.
Don't-
Well, thanks for being on the show. I know you're
Thank
very
you.
active too in politics and things like that. So, or to some extent.
Well, I'd like to, do my share.
Yes,
you know.
yeah,
So, got to stay busy.
yeah. Well, thanks for being here, Nick.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And we also have my friend Peggy Dunn with us tonight. How are you, Peggy?
Very well, and yourself?
Good, good, thanks. Your 6th time on the show.
Is that right? Well,
Same
John's
as
ahead of
Nick,
me.
I guess. That side is number
There you go.
6.
When you become a selectman, you get 2 more.
Next year.
Was that an announcement?
That's a threat.
That's an announcement?
All right.
Is that an
You ever
announcement?
think of running for selectman, Peggy?
Oh, Oh,
Not
Peggy.
lately, not lately. No, years ago.
Well, you should think of it sometime, you know? but-
No, it's too late. It's too late.
We're trying to recruit you.
never
at
too
some
late.
point.
Well, and Peggy, along with myself, is a member of the Chelmsford Board of Library Trustees, right, Peggy? Do you
Yes.
like that so far?
Oh, I love it.
You
I love
love it?
it.
Yeah, it's
I
good.
love it. I'm also the liaison to the Friends, and I
Yes.
just love them. They're the most fabulous people in the world,
Yes.
really, the Friends. They do so much work.
They do. In fact, don't they have their annual meeting, I think, coming up
Yeah,
in
November
early November,
1st.
November 1st?
And Becky
Becky-
Warren is
yeah.
the speaker, yes.
That's going to be great.
It'll be
at
fabulous.
the library.
Yeah, it'll be fabulous.
Wonderful. Yeah, they do such a wonderful job. The Friends of the Library, they work so hard
They make money
throughout
like
the
crazy.
year. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
They're like little beavers making
Yeah.
money all the time.
Yeah.
And that's why the library can afford
Mhm.
to have the programs that it has. It's really all the Friends doing. We would not have a third of the programs that we have without them. And they're to be commended.
Yeah, they do
Yes,
incredible
oh,
work.
yes. And Peggy's also a longtime town meeting representative. Is it Precinct 1, Peggy?
Yes,
Precinct 1?
yes.
Great.
Always
and,
one.
And later on in the show, we'll talk about last night's town meeting and how
Yes,
that went
yes,
and
yes.
some of your ideas about it. But I thought we'd maybe start the show with the presidential race,
Mm-hmm.
which, as I mentioned earlier in the show, tonight is the night of the second debate, which is a town meeting format, which I'm not that thrilled about it when they do these. Because do you remember in 2008, they had a town meeting format, and they asked all the people in the town meeting to like sit so still and don't say anything. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It was like they were robots back there, and they were so afraid. So it wasn't like a real town meeting
Right.
where anybody comes up to the mic and says something. And so I'm not a huge fan of this, but hopefully it'll turn out okay. And so I thought I'll just leave it open for any discussion. Maybe, what are your overall thoughts about the presidential race thus far with George? Yeah, not George. Mitt Romney and President.
No,
His
it's
father
not
was
George.
George.
George was a long time
George
ago.
was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. George would release all of his taxes.
Yeah, right. 12 years.
It just
or
seemed
something.
like forever.
Yeah, I know he's been running, Mitt, I think, for a long time. But so we have Mitt Romney. We have President Obama running for his second term. So what are your thoughts thus far? Anyone on the presidential race?
I mean, I think it's been interesting just watching the poll numbers go back and forth, and and the debate, you know, last, was it 2 weeks ago?
yes. Yeah.
Now, just watching that, I mean, it was quite an experience.
That
So
was
not what I
amazing,
expected,
wasn't it?
that's
Yes.
for sure. So I had seen, you know, I worked with Mitt Romney when he was governor on some laws to protect our community. So I had, you know, spoken to him many times.
Oh, you have? You've spoken to him many times?
Right.
What was he like personally
Just
when you spoke
very
with him?
calm, nice,
Nice?
you know, nice guy.
Yeah.
You know, so he's a big family guy. So it worked well with him. You know, we got some good things done when he was governor. But just seeing him in that forum, you know, it was good to watch.
Yes, yeah. Any other thoughts about the
Well, he only stayed here 2 years, though, out of the 4-year
Well, not
governorship.
really. He was doing stuff. You know, I think for people
yeah,
who.
but actually, he was gone the last 2 years, and he
No,
also
he
was
wasn't
going around the country and saying bad things about us.
He
about
was?
this.
I don't
Oh
think
yeah.
so.
Oh,
yeah.
no, he definitely was back walking his
I
his
think with
governorship
the,
of Massachusetts.
Well,
Yeah.
I think when you're dealing with a fully democratic legislature, you know, saying that and then trying
Well,
to say
Difficult.
I
that,
think they were very
know,
cooperative with
Well,
him.
you know, I think they worked well together, but there were
Exactly.
some things that he didn't get done that he probably would have gotten done had the legislature been.
I don't know about
Yeah,
that. I
no,
don't.
But when he was running in the primaries, especially like Iowa, the you know, the Corn Belt or the South, he was definitely saying not good things
Like
about
what? Yeah.
Massachusetts. Oh, you know, that we're whacked. You know, that we're
I don't think I've ever heard that.
well,
John.
not
I don't
that,
think
not
that's
that,
fair.
not that specific. No. He definitely, he definitely was talking about how Massachusetts was outside the mainstream. That Massachusetts was, you know.
Why do you think Massachusetts is in the mainstream? You think
well,
it's
I-
like
I
in
don't think-
Ohio?
I don't think it's. I don't.
Do you
well, I
think
don't.
Ohio's the mainstream?
Actually, I do. Actually, you know something?
mainstream of
no.
what?
The truth. No. Honestly, if you look at demographics and if you look at any state in the entire country, any company that actually wants to do any kind of survey for a product, where is it done? It's done in one city, Columbus, Ohio, because the demographics in that city are exactly the same. If you multiply it to the level of 320 million, it gives you exactly what the country looks like. That's
Yeah,
why
except-
Ohio is such a bit, and that's why Ohio, to be honest with you, I honestly think that the country is literally split down the middle, and that's why Ohio is split down the middle. That's
All right, you've got
tells
the
you a lot.
Cincinnati's, which is
Yeah.
the very
Yeah.
conservative. You've got
Yep,
the
down
Cleveland.
in the southwest, and
I
then
mean,
up
it's
in the
a-
northeast you have Cleveland, and then you got Columbus in the middle.
Well, Pennsylvania's the same way. Pennsylvania is.
Well,
Pennsylvania. The
Eastern
problem
Pi-
with Pennsylvania is heavily weighed in Pittsburgh and Philly, and everything else in the middle is like you
Well,
know.
that's exactly it. It's,
Right.
it's Philadelphia near the coast. It's different than the.
But no, I definitely remember hearing.
Oh, I do too, because I was very offended by it.
comment. Yeah, I was too. I was too. I didn't think it was really appropriate for a former governor to basically
Well, he
say.
wasn't even former at the time he started.
Well,
it.
I
He
remember
Well,
stuff
no, I
more
don't think
recently.
so.
I remember more
Well,
recently stuff. But the bottom line is that he was definitely backwalking his relationship with Massachusetts.
Well, he was even backwalking his health bill that he put through.
Right.
That he really didn't
Well,
want
I don't
it.
know if there's a lot of backwalking going on that. I think he's saying that he would leave it up to every state to
Correct.
decide on their whole health care.
So I
that
can-
is
I
a
can-
I don't
state
think that's
decision.
I
backwalking.
can see
That's,
Mississippi
a
just jumping
cop-out.
into that,
No,
right?
it's not.
But you know,
I
John,
mean,
this
he
is what
feels that
this
way
is
in
what
a
it
lot
comes
of
down
things,
to.
and so do I.
Well, you know the.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, no, that's all
Why
right.
don't we
No.
let Peggy go,
Go ahead,
and then
yep.
Nick
No,
after.
I was just going to say the funny thing we were talking about debates. It reminds me of the Nixon-Kennedy debate because I did not watch the last debate. I listened to it on the radio because I was in the car coming back from somewhere, and I thought Obama did a superb job. But I was listening to it.
Oh, really? You
Well,
thought?
well, I think you find. I have a real problem with debates as a measure of how a president's going to do, to be honest with you. And I think that people who watch the debates go into it with their own preset conception of how they want their candidate to do. I was reading postings on Facebook. I didn't have a chance to see the Biden-Ryan debate, but the Republicans are saying that Ryan was just killing Biden, and then the Democrats are saying that Biden was killing Ryan. So it really depends on where you're coming from
Right.
as to what your perception is. But just because you're able to debate, does that mean that you're going to be a competent leader? And I'm not sure that that's a very good measure. Okay?
Well, it all just, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it all so depends upon what you're saying. There are some people that may very well like what you're saying, and other people don't like what you're saying, so they.
It's the
you-
quality of the message.
Exactly.
And that's what it is.
And-
You know,
and-
you can be a
and
strong
that's
debater,
why, to
but if your
me-
message is terrible, you're not going to get across.
Well, that's what bothered me about the debate, the presidential debate, because for the last 4 years, Romney has been saying certain things, but at the debate, he was saying totally different things.
Yeah.
And the one analogy, well, I have a problem with a candidate who tells us that they're going to change our tax structure, but doesn't tell us how they're going to do it. And the only two things that he said about the taxes was that he was going to give a big tax cut to the wealthiest Americans, but then he was going to cut all the loopholes out of it. So my question is, if you're going to cut the loopholes out of for the wealthy, why give them the tax cut in the first place? What are you doing here? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, I think what he's trying to do is to stimulate growth in the economy, John, by lowering the tax rates and increasing incentives to create companies, create jobs, grow companies.
Right, but
is that right, Nick? I mean, you know,
to be honest with you, if you really look at the quote unquote 1%, that supposedly is the culprits in all of these problems that are occurring across the country, you look at them and it's really a lot of small businesses. And like for example, like my company, we're a small business. We're going to fall under the 1%. Are we extremely profitable? No, but because we generate a certain amount of revenue, just because we generate we fall into that category base. And that's what happens is, for my company, for example, if you put a lot of undue pressure on my company, I can't hire people. I haven't been able to hire a person in 4 years because of concerns with healthcare costs, taxation, no relief at all from a tax incentive standpoint in the state of Massachusetts, unless you're a very, very large company, a Raytheon or one of the green companies. That's how you're going to get a big tax break. But for a small company, which 85% of the jobs that are generated in the entire country are through small business, not big companies, and not the government. I mean,
Right.
that's not the way it should be.
But Nick,
so you're penalizing. The penalty is going towards those small businesses. Those millionaires that are making millions, they're an outlier. They're way out there. There's not many of them. There's not as many as people think there. They make it sound like there's so many of these or not?
Well, there are a fair amount, but the bottom line is this. Obama is not talking about taxing businesses. He's talking about taxing individuals. And there's a huge difference because I'm a small businessman myself. The reality is that the way you stimulate economy is to reduce taxes to the middle class because they're the vast majority of the people. They're the people who are going to be buying the cars. They're the people who are going to be buying the electronics. They're the people who are going to be buying groceries and homes. The wealthy people already have their
But
homes.
they can't buy that if they don't have jobs.
Exactly, and here's
You
the
know,
thing.
you can't,
Back
I
in the-
can't go
back-
shopping if I'm unemployed.
Back in the late 90s, and I can tell you from a hiring perspective, the salaries for employees grew immensely across the entire country. Why? Because the growth was so much that it was difficult to find employees, and people were jumping from job to job to get increases in salary. When that happens, they can buy cars, they can buy homes, they can buy boats, they can buy all sorts of things that sometimes, material things that are not really necessary, but they end up buying things. So if that doesn't happen, as a middle class person, if you're making, pick a number, $40,000 a year, and or $50,000 a year, and you reduce the person's taxes by 5% or even 10%, okay? How much more money do you think they're going to be able to spend out in the marketplace? An extra $1,000?
No, but if you've
It's
got
almost insignificant.
if you've got 15 million of them, it's huge.
But it's a small number compared to the point of you need to have job growth. You need to have an incentive for small businesses to bring people on.
Then why did the Republicans vote down 2 different jobs bills that the Democrats were
Because
promoting?
those job bills were not really out there to create jobs.
Those are
Yes, they were.
government-created
They were just-
jobs.
No, a lot of them were private jobs too.
Oh, no, it was not.
They-
There were
they-
no.
they were-
If the
they were-
government's
they
funding
were-
a private job, then it's not a
Well,
private
why
job.
They were
wasn't-
providing incentives for private industry
Right.
to why
Neither one of those.
Bridge
Neither one of those
construction.
bills would have encouraged any job
That
growth
is-
in
that
my
is-
company.
Well,
Zero.
But once
You-
the money
you
the
know what
government
you're forgetting
money
now
runs out,
is
then the
remember
job
that-
goes.
Excuse
I'm
me,
sorry.
can we let Laurie finish
Oh, I'm
that?
sorry, I
We're
didn't
having
know.
our own
she was-
conversations
Yeah,
here.
why don't we have Laurie,
So
please.
once the government money runs out, so the job goes away, and that's it. I mean, that's a problem we had just any city or town when the state money runs out and they use one-time money to employ someone, then the job goes away.
Right,
and then what happens?
except for the fact
We're
that
just extending the problem out.
our infrastructure is deteriorating. Our bridges are in horrible shape. Our roads are not in good shape. We have buildings that are falling apart. These are private sector jobs that, a welder, a cement worker, any type of contractor. Those are private sector jobs
do that separately then, but don't call it a stimulus bill.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
that's
Don't
what it
say
is.
it's a job
And
stimulus
what-
bill.
and
if it's
Say
an
that
open,
our
and if it's an
infrastructure
open
needs
job,
work.
why isn't it open to everyone? Why does it have to be unionized, or why does it have to be a company that has certain capabilities that locks out other small businesses? Totally locks them out.
In many states, it is open to everyone. In Massachusetts, we have a couple of arcane laws that I personally don't agree with. I don't agree with the fact that you have to have police details with traffic when the utility company is doing some maintenance or they're doing some road work. I don't understand that. I don't understand why certain public buildings have to be constructed necessarily with union employees. Okay, it just increases the cost to all of us. But Massachusetts is an outlier in that regard. There are many, many states that don't have that. Okay, so if you're going to do a construction job on a bill in Minnesota, a bridge in Minnesota, you don't necessarily need to have union workers doing that. And the bottom line is this, okay? The reason our economy crashed is because the trickle-down theory doesn't work. It hasn't worked in the past, and it doesn't work now. We had the greatest economic growth under Bill Clinton, okay?
Bill Clinton and a Republican House of Representatives.
Well, half the time it was
They
Democrats.
have to work together. They have to. It's
Right,
absolutely
and
critical that
I
they work
agree
together.
with you on that, Nick. And here's the problem I have with the so-called party of no. For the first 3 years, the Republicans were not silent about the fact that they were going to oppose every initiative that Obama had because they wanted to make sure he did not succeed and that he would be vulnerable.
John, I understand that, but for the first 2 years, he had an open checkbook.
No, he didn't.
Yes, why not?
I'll tell you why not. because Al Franken was trying to get put on. They did not have a filibuster-proof Senate. Franken, that was in litigation for almost a year and a half. So he was
Still should be in litigation.
Well, you know, he won the election. Okay, so they said him. Ted Kennedy was sick, died. Lautenberg was sick. There were a bunch of situations where the Democrats, in theory, had 60 people, but they really didn't because people weren't around. And the bottom line is that it was not.
John,
Well, look.
But John, hold on a second.
Oh, Nick, excuse me, could I just let him finish his point?
Okay.
And then one
Yep.
second. You almost finished. Could you wrap it up,
sure.
John?
It was not a filibuster-proof Congress and Senate. So Obama was making concessions left and right. And the big criticism that the Democrats have of Obama is that he kept reaching over to the Republicans and trying to engage them in the process, and then they wouldn't budge.
Okay, thanks, John. Nick, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Did Bill Clinton find a common ground to work with a Republican House of Representatives?
I think
Did he not? Did he not?
Well,
I
I
mean,
think-
just answer the question.
Well, no, I'll answer the question, and the question is that the political atmosphere between 1994, when Clinton was president, and today is apples and oranges. There is no such thing as the loyal opposition now. It's trench warfare between the Republicans and the Democrats,
And when did that start?
during the Bush administration.
Oh, correct. And it started because there was a Democratic legislature that did not want to work with George Bush because he was hated. He was absolutely hated. But from a political standpoint, I think what's going to be key in the whole race itself is going to be enthusiasm, depending upon which political base brings out their forces.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's what's going to be key
And,
because
and that may be what hurts Obama, because he rallied a bunch of people, got them to register and get out and vote. And
In
if he can't
2008,
inspire them,
yeah.
exactly, if he
That's
can't
right.
inspire them to get out and vote, he's going to be in
I
trouble.
think
Yeah.
that's going to be the enthusiasm that's going to be the difference.
And Peggy, you
Oh,
were going
well,
to say something a
there
while
were
ago.
so
Yeah.
many points that go on all the time now. But this is, I've been around for a long time, and I've been voting for a long time. This is the first time in my entire life I heard the Speaker of the House of Representatives get up, and both leaders of a political party get up and say they would make sure that the sitting president served only one term, because they would say no. And they said it publicly, so you can't deny that they did. I think that that's really irresponsible, and that's why we have the horrible government that we have right now. I think they all should, be
Term limits.
dismissed.
Say it, Peg. Term limits.
No,
Say it,
because
term limits,
good
Peggy.
people, no, because good people get punished by term limits.
and-
How about Michelle Bachmann? I mean, there's a lady that's
But-
really crazy.
But you want to know something? You can look
Yeah.
at the left the same way. There are certain
Well,
individuals.
well,
There's
you
some
have
individuals
different
from
crazy- you have different
from my parents' state of New York. There are some crazies from that state are just amazing. But
Well-
I guess my point about Michelle Bachmann is, again, it's all local. It's you. It's who your local organ. That's why
Yeah,
term
but
limits
what
is
she
great.
says isn't local. She
if
gets up
they-
and has all these
but
conspiracy
but if the
theories.
people
And,
from
the
her
other
district
thing
don't
is-
like her, they vote her out.
Well,
You understand?
well,
They
well,
represent.
it-
That's your.
That may actually
Nikki
happen this
Songus is-
year. That may
Nikki
happen.
Songus
Yeah,
is our
I think
representative.
she is in
I
trouble.
don't support her, but she's still my representative. So whatever she says, positive or negative, I'm either enthusiastic about it
Well, you know
or
what?
embarrassed about it.
You know
what I
what,
mean? Because
Nick?
she's my rep.
The problem I have with a lot of this is because I'm not an ideologue. I have been an independent voter since I've been able to vote, and therefore I'm a middle of the road, or I'm like Baby Bear, not too hot, not too cold, and that's what I want. So when I have never seen on what is now considered the left, the kind of a really awful stuff that I'm seeing from the right. I mean, really, really mean and rotten and lies. lies.
Oh, let me
I've
tell you, want
seen
to
a
talk
lot
about
of
lies?
stuff
I
on
don't
the
want to
other
turn
side,
on the
too.
TV. I don't want to answer my phone, and they're
Well-
coming
well,
from both
I-
sides.
but,
And
well,
by
I
the
don't
way,
know.
I'm
I
an
watch the
independent voter
same-
as well.
I think I watch the same
vote the
television
person,
you do.
not the party. That's how I have voted my entire life, and that's how I'll continue
Well,
to vote
I don't
my
see
entire life.
anybody.
I would love to
saying-
see elections without the D or the R next to the name.
I would too.
I would love to see
I would
that.
like
I
it
would.
to be a
You know what I mean?
meritocracy.
And just let people just vote.
Yeah.
When
the way
this
they want.
country was founded, didn't some of the founding fathers
They didn't
that?
want-
They
They
didn't want the
that.
parties,
Correct.
right?
They
That's
didn't
what I'm
want
saying.
parties.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
they would agree with you,
They-
Nick,
Yeah,
and
I-
I personally wish we went that way
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Yeah, so do I.
agree.
'Cause now
I
you-
vote the
Well,
person.
and
Now
now
you're
not the
voting the
party.
person.
And
Exactly.
you know, now they've dragged the Supreme Court into it, because now that the Supreme Court says that corporations are people, and also that you can have political PACs and things that don't have to say who's giving money, and they can give unlimited amount of money. Some people in some of the PACs have given $10 million each. I mean, I think that's disgusting.
Yep.
Right.
And-
I think we're all in agreement with,
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
that. I mean,
and-
when Judge Souter was in Chelmsford last
Yes,
year for
yes.
Bartlett Park,
Yes.
okay, because he was very friendly with the Bartlett family, I had a chance to talk to him about Citizens United, which is the case. He said it is the absolute worst decision
Yep.
in his mind in the history of the Supreme Court.
That's right. That's right.
And,
they-
and there's some bad ones back
Can
then
it be
too.
overturned, John, anytime soon, do you
We
think?
we would need to have legislation to overturn it.
Legislation.
And
Yeah.
Oh,
not
how
gonna
about the
get it.
Supreme Court, though? Can't they revisit it, or no?
Yeah,
Or they don't
You know,
generally
well,
do
well,
that?
you know
We've
what?
become a
That's a great
disgrace,
question,
really.
Tom, Carmen, because the real, when I vote, I'm voting to see who's going to be appointing Supreme Court judges, because presidents will come and go. In the worst case scenario, they can mess up our country for 8 years. Supreme Court judges can mess up our country for generations.
That's
right.
And really,
That's
ever
a-
s-
that's
ever since
critical
ever since
in
I've
terms
started
of
voting, I vote
How
for
you vote, yes.
Well, I was always a big supporter of the Supreme Court. I always felt that they were the one shining star up there. But when they got involved in the election
the
In
in Florida,
2000?
yeah, and everything, I thought they were starting to go downhill. And now I don't respect them the way I did. I really feel, and I have to admire Justice Roberts, though, for recently on the health care bill.
Yeah, but you know why he did that.
Well, yes, I do, but at least he did
Why
it.
is there
Well,
an
let's,
underlying
let's,
thing
why
behind
did you-
everything?
why do you-
The guy felt that that's the way it should go.
No. The decision that he rendered was not even, the basis for his decision was not even something that they argued. Justice Roberts is a corporatist, okay? And Obamacare funnels all these people in the United States to buy private insurance. If it was a single payer plan, which is what a lot of people think would be the cheapest and the best run plan, he would have voted against it. But he's a corporatist at heart, and that's fine. If you recognize what he is what he is. And that's why Scalia and Thomas are so angry at him, is because they expected him to vote one way to kill Obamacare, and he voted the other way.
So be it. Move on.
Right.
You know, I don't have I have no problem against the way he voted. I have no problem with the Supreme Court the way they voted. Do I want it to go in that direction? To be honest with you, no, I did not. But I get over it. I'm
Nick,
done.
could I ask you a question? As a business owner, have you seen the rules that would be imposed upon your business because
Well,
of so-called Obamacare?
We have seen some
Are they
new things.
onerous, so onerous that you would not hire another person?
I will not
because of
hire
that?
another employee.
And what is it
forever
like?
in the
What,
state of
what are
Massachusetts.
they imposing on your company? Just a couple of examples. One
Well,
example.
some of the costs are almost fixed to the point that, you see, my belief, and again, you don't believe in this because you don't believe in trickle down, but the way I'm going to take care of my employees, and I've always taken care of my employees, is I'm going to give them the best plan, because if I give them a bad plan, they're going to leave, and I won't be able to attract new talent. Okay, today I won't bring anybody on board. Going forward, every employee that we're going to hire is going to be a temp. Or somebody that's
Really?
somebody that's going to be a
Now,
consultant,
because
and that's
of
it. Because
the
of that,
healthcare-
because we can't afford the whole healthcare thing.
How much, do you have any idea what it would cost you per employee?
Per employee, it cost us probably $20,000.
$20,000 per employee?
Between $18,000 and $20,000.
Yeah, that's
Per-
probably right.
That's wow.
That's probably right.
It just seems like a lot of money for.
Yeah.
Well, it is a lot of money.
Think
and
about
that- and-
$18,000 to $20,000 for an employee that their salary is going to be about, say, $45,000 to $50,000.
well, do you actually cover the whole cost of health insurance
We
for your employee?
cover 70%.
Okay.
We
That's
try to
why
be
I-
as fair as possible. You know something? I don't
Which
treat
is
my,
actu- which
my
is-
employees are my family. That's the way I treat them. You know what I
Right.
mean? I have
Yeah.
to treat them well.
Oh, no.
Yes.
We
So-
do too.
Well, that's why I think businesses are kind of penalized with this health care. They have to kind of be responsible and for these health care costs. I would like to see our country get the health care out of businesses and just do it some other way, single payer some other way. So we don't, you have a business too, John. I mean, if I own a business, I wouldn't like to have to put out
It
$20,000
should be state
before I
controlled.
hire somebody.
Every state should do their own thing. John mentioned Mississippi.
Right.
If it doesn't work in Mississippi and I live there and I don't like that process, I leave. Remember,
Well,
this is
you
a
know what?
republic. This is a republic.
Nick,
okay?
that's
This is not
that's
a
so
democracy.
disingenuous. Mississippi has the highest poverty rate of almost any state in the
and you
union,
don't have the choice to
and they
leave.
can't move
And-
out.
and you-
The
but
cost of living there is so cheap.
I understand, but my point is that no one ties you down to any. If I don't like Massachusetts, and I do complain about Massachusetts, I can leave.
Because
can
you've
leave.
got
You
the
can
you've
go.
got the
Exactly.
you've got the financial resources to
I
be able to
understand,
do
but
it.
I stay here because of the roots of my family's roots. You know, can I pick up and move to southern New Hampshire? Of course I could. I don't want to. I like this town. You know, and I will work it out and do what I can. And if it means through doing it through the political process, then I will do that, and I will do it the right way.
But Nick, I think you have to admit that our healthcare system and the funding of the healthcare system has been broken for decades.
You're absolutely correct.
And we're at least somebody is trying to do something. And I don't agree with Obamacare because he watered it down to get something passed. That's really what happened. And you know, if it was run on a single payer basis where everybody has the same forms and it's just submitted to the same people who just process the paperwork, it would be a lot less expensive. But you know, we're inured to a situation, and it's not the fix that we really
Yes.
need.
Correct.
Well,
And-
they took the single payer option out because it would never have passed.
Right.
That's right.
It wouldn't have been.
Yes, it
correct.
wouldn't have
There's
passed,
your
but-
answer.
Correct.
But I kind of, I don't know. I
Yeah,
just think
it's
the
tough.
system we have now, $20,000 before you have to hire someone, it just seems outrageous to me.
I can't
And-
afford it.
and-
It's not I don't want to. I would love
that's
to
what I
bring
mean.
people on
We
board.
can't
I
afford this
it.
anymore. Something has to change in this healthcare system
So
radically.
But when the government gets involved, and I'll even talk about colleges and universities, right? You know, as soon as the government got involved with giving money out to students, the cost for universities has exploded.
Yeah.
And that's an artificial change that was made to the universities. There's people that are getting exorbitant salaries teaching 2 or 3 courses at colleges that you sit there and you scratch your head and you go, how as a parent, I have 5 kids, how am I supposed to put 5 kids through college? I'm trying to put my first son in, and the 2 of us, I had a conversation with him just this afternoon.
Well, Mitt Romney had an answer for you.
You know?
You pay for it, or they
No,
take
they
a
don't
loan.
go.
It's called
But
student loans,
you're
and that's
missing
it.
my point. Back about 30 years ago, the government got involved so heavily as whatever the. Listen, I've been in government. I've been dealing with the government for 32 years.
I saw
32
that
years.
ad.
I've been dealing with. No, I have. I've been dealing with the government for 32 years, and whatever they touch turns to crap. It really does. You know, the government should just stay out of. They should do certain things. They should take care of the borders. They should handle the State Department, and they should basically play referee between the states. And that's all
And
they really
defend-
government.
men
So
should
defense,
as
do.
right?
a
Congress,
school
yeah,
committee
defense.
member, then they shouldn't educate our children?
Not the federal government.
Well, no, you said government. You didn't
the
say federal.
No, I did. That's what I meant. The federal government. I apologize if that's a stand. But that's what I was really talking about is the federal government.
Yeah.
I think it should be done at the local level. I think Chelmsford, to be honest with you, I'll look at this town, I'll look at the people that live here and the school committee and the executive branch, and I know that those individuals will do right for the school. I honestly deep down believe that. I really, really do.
So you're against Social Security?
No, I'm not against Social Security.
Well, that's you said that the
it's an
government should do 3
established-
things.
No, it's not. See, you're mixing my words. That was put in place back in the 1940s. okay?
No,
And
30s.
people,
Right.
excuse me, okay, 1930s.
Peggy was there.
I didn't say that.
It doesn't bother me.
But you know something? When people pay into a program, then they deserve to get out of it.
Right.
Okay. But how about all those individuals that don't pay into that program and are getting out of it? How does
Who are
that work?
they?
Yeah.
Who are they?
Yeah.
There are no individuals that are getting money out of the Social Security program. I know of many, many individuals. Not personally, they're not friends
Do
of
they
mine.
have a Social Security number? How did they get that number?
That's a good question. That is the
Well,
question.
you're talking about illegality. I mean,
Correct.
well, there's
Correct. But there's such a large amount of those individuals. You know what I mean? But again, when the government gets involved from a bureaucratic standpoint, it just becomes huge.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big believer. I'm really even a big believer of a flat tax.
You know
You
what?
know why?
When he's
because
done.
get the IRS out. Because you know why? The
See,
government shouldn't be
Nick,
involved.
we agree on something.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just, you know.
I'm
sorry,
sorry, I just want to point out something. You said get the government out of everything. It makes a mess of everything.
Mm-hmm.
We would not have the road system that we have in this country
True.
if it weren't for the federal government. And the distribution system, which allows the trucks to go everywhere. We got the best Wait, you be quiet.
Yeah, no, you're correct. You're correct. But,
Well,
but you
exactly.
missed my point because I did say
You know
commerce,
what?
did I
I
not?
was quiet while you spoke. We wouldn't have the airports that we have without the federal government, nor would we have the safety of the air system that we have without the government that initiating all these things. All these things were done by the federal government because we are such a large country, and that was the way. We wouldn't even be in California if it wasn't for the federal government many years ago. So I don't believe that. And as far as regulations go, I don't know if you recall, but I recall back in the 60s, early 70s, when the rivers in this country were on fire because they were so polluted. New Jersey was, the rivers were burning and so forth. There was so much pollution that in the air that everybody had respiratory problems. All these things, so we get the government out of those. I don't want to live with my rivers on fire,
No,
please.
no, and I do
Well, I
understand
think,
that.
you know,
but
you guys are going extreme. I mean, there's got to be a happy, somewhere in the middle where
Yes, but there is no
government
happy
doesn't have
medium
to
right
have
now.
control over
Yeah.
every single thing we do.
But it
and then the
doesn't.
only way it can be funded is to raise our taxes. I mean, it's not working now. People are frustrated. People are losing their homes. They're losing jobs. You know, I mean, you can't have it that way.
But you know what? What brought all this on, Laurie? This wasn't happening 10 years ago. It's been happening.
It happens sporadically.
No,
oh.
never. I've been around a long time, and it never.
it's building.
Really,
That's what the problem
in
is. It's
the
been
80s.
building.
This is the worst.
It's been building.
This is the worst recession since the Great Depression.
I agree with
Agreed.
that.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
100%.
the truth. That's the truth.
But how did we get here?
Well, you tell me. I could tell you.
You tell me, and
Well,
we'll see if we
Mr.
agree.
George Bush.
Oh,
course.
see?
Well,
wait a second.
wait a
He's the cause of the
minute.
whole
Wait a
entire
minute.
thing.
I
Here
would
we
have
go.
guessed that one.
Wait a minute. We fought 2 wars
Yep.
and never paid for it,
Yep.
did we? Okay? We're still fighting one.
I'd be
in
happy if that
Afghanistan.
one were over too,
And
and
we
it's
have
not going to
not
happen.
Right.
paid for
When
it.
we're bringing our guys home, don't. Down. Good
He
girl.
says, shut up. No, all these things that were going on, which he was aware of. If you recall, when he came out with Paulson, the day the whole world crashed there, his eyes were this big. He had no idea what happened, you know. And that was going on for 2 years prior to.
Are you talking about 9/11?
No,
No,
she's
I'm
talking about
talking
Lehman
about
Brothers,
the
Goldman
financial
Sachs.
crash.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's who was in the White House. And this had been going on for 2 years. So
Thank
you go ahead.
You know, I love this discussion. I don't know about you guys.
I wanted
but-
you to jump in a little there.
Oh,
You jumped in just a little.
I'm the moderator, so, but I'd love to have this panel again back sometime, just to sit back, talk about what's going on in the country,
Come
in
back
the
after
world.
the election.
You know, this is what the show was meant to be, really, when I called it politically incorrect. You know, just a discussion about what's going on in our world, and lively, and you guys are fantastic, and we could have regular panels, I think, every once in a while. I think all 4 of you are fantastic, but our time is running out, as you know, and I know I'll probably get
thank heaven.
reprimanded if we don't cover at least some of the other races. So we only have maybe 15 minutes left or something.
Wow,
So
went by fast.
yeah, it's just zipping by. So I thought we could start with the U.S. Senate race, which is huge throughout the country. And I'm watching every debate. I love them. I think this is fantastic. So we have Elizabeth Warren running for the first time for the U.S. Senate. We have Scott Brown running for re-election. I believe he was elected in 2010, about 2 years ago.
Right.
And a special election. So he's running now to be re-elected as a U.S. Senator for a full 6-year term. And the polls are very tight. The debates are very interesting. And you could probably, depending on what party you like, you could say my person's great or whatever. But anyway, what are your overall thoughts about the U.S. Senate race thus far? And the debates?
I'll let
Anything you
somebody
might
else
wanna
talk
mention?
for a few minutes while I
Yeah.
catch my breath.
Peggy, go ahead. You can start.
No, I thought I just had my 15 minutes of fame.
We like you so much.
Oh,
We'll let you continue.
Well, I don't know. I'm surprised it's so close, quite frankly.
In what
Why
sense?
is
You
that?
think Elizabeth Warren should be much higher, or
No,
Scott
I thought
Brown,
I
or-
thought it would be one way
One
or
way
the other.
or one or the other, yeah.
I didn't really think it would be a race. I thought one person
Yeah,
would take off,
I see. Yeah.
and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I haven't really been following it all that closely.
Oh.
But I just thought it would be,
Yeah, more.
you know, either Brown or Warren.
Yeah.
And it turned out that's not the way it is
Yeah,
at
it's
all.
different.
So that's my surprise.
Yeah. Actually, I'm very similar thoughts. When I first looked at it back 6, 7, 8 months ago, I said to myself, it's a presidential election. Massachusetts is a heavily Democratic state, and the Democratic Party picked a I'll use the word, not an outlier, someone that was involved on the Democratic side. So I said, Scott has no chance. There's just no chance he can win this, because think about it, the political forces behind getting the vote out on either
Okay,
side.
Yes, but Nick, could we talk about this current race rather than
Oh,
the
yeah.
one of 2 years ago?
No,
Yeah,
no,
go
no, no,
ahead.
no. But I'm talking. That's my point. My point is that today,
Yeah.
you know, you would think that Elizabeth Warren should be ahead by close to the same percentage that the president has from a comfortable lead over the governor. So you know, you would think that Elizabeth Warren would be up 8 to 10 points.
But the presidential race is very, very close right now.
But
as
no,
well,
in
right?
Massachusetts.
In
other words,
Massachusetts.
when you
okay,
weigh
in
the
Mass,
two
yeah,
together,
Mass is about a
that's-
20-point difference.
right. So you would look
Yeah.
at that and you say, what's that? So that
Right.
says
But look at
it
the
says something
overwhelming
about.
vote he got before. So
True, but it was not a presidential election.
I
It
know.
was a single election. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yeah.
So now you got people that are going to come out in support of the president because of, you know, the party affiliation, and Scott is still keeping it close. So I'm actually surprised from that standpoint. I don't know how it's going to end up, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll let Laurie go.
No, again, like everyone else, I'm surprised that they're so close. I did go to the debate at the Songus Arena, and I think on substance, I mean, they're both. I don't think I could watch another debate. I just
Really?
feel like they're both kind of stuck on their talking points, and at this point now, if you don't know how you're
Oh, yeah.
voting, then
Anybody
you
that's
know.
undecided.
So
right.
it's-
that has to be the worst cop on the
I like watching the debates
Either
anyway.
that or they're dead.
right.
Nothing.
So
In fact, I
I
was
mean,
just-
how people have no idea is beyond me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I-
watch the debates anyway, though,
Yeah.
Laura. You could understand
Right,
that, though, right?
right.
I just want to know everything that's being said during these debates. I find them interesting and informative and exciting. Yes, you might know how they're going to say, but you don't know how they're going to interact with each other.
Right.
I know, I find debates fascinating.
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
miss
enjoy
one.
debates as well. But
John, sorry, about the U.S. Senate race? Your thought?
Well, I'm a little disappointed in the negative ads. I've been,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a congressional campaign that the negative ads that are in the Chelmsford one that just blow me away. But it bothers me that Scott Brown for the last 4 months have been hammering Elizabeth Warren on the fact that she may or she may not be of Native American heritage. And the bottom line is that how is that even relevant to her capacity to serve? When she grew up, she was told that she was Native American. She's got an elderly aunt who didn't even know she was running, who they asked her, and she says, "Oh no, yeah, we've got." But back then, it was not something that they publicized.
That's right.
You did not let people know. If you were a person who had some some African American blood in you, but you looked Caucasian, you did not let people know that your grandfather was black. That was just not happening. And for him to keep pounding on that and saying that she got an advantage in the job. Charles Freed, who was a well-known Republican in Massachusetts, was one of the people who hired her. And he has said, we did not know anything about this Native American thing. That was not a consideration. So for him to keep hammering her and saying that she's a liar when there are no records to show that who is right. The other thing that bothered me is this mesothelioma.
Mesothelioma.
Yes, thank you. Easy for you to say. It's an extremely complicated lawsuit in which it's been going on for 30 years. It's still going on.
Right?
It's still going on. She was representing Travelers Insurance to put a fund aside, $770 million, to protect victims of asbestos poisoning. And
that money was coming from Travelers Insurance, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it was coming because Johns Manville was in bankruptcy, and Travelers was one of the insurance companies. And the deal was, she went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. She won the case to establish this fund to protect claimants. The deal was that then Travelers would be immune from other lawsuits. If anybody had a claim, they could make a claim and get their money out of the $770 million. It goes back from the U.S. Supreme Court back to the bankruptcy court. And the insurance company changes their position. Now, she's no longer representing them. When she represented them, she was protecting the victims and trying to make sure that there was a fund available to pay people who had been victims. So for him to say that she was not involved and that she wasn't trying to protect the victims of asbestos poisoning is at worst disingenuous. But I think it's an intentional misrepresentation.
I think you have the victims coming out now saying that she wasn't as well. So I think you've got victims on either side of that. Can I just talk?
Sure.
Because as a woman, I am offended that Liz Warren, as a woman, continues to attack Brown and try to scare other women on the issue of him being pro. Well, they're saying that he's not pro-choice, that he's going to vote with the Republicans. I am sick of getting the phone calls. I am sick of seeing it on TV, and I am sick of having to answer the question every single time I get someone saying, "Don't vote for Brown. He's not for women." That is disingenuous. So stop attacking women, especially coming from a woman, because Brown is pro-choice. He has been out there with that from the start, and I am sick and tired of hearing about it. And that strikes a chord with me.
Right.
So,
but the point I'm trying to make is
the negative ads. I will agree with you that the negative ads have to stop. But don't pretend that Liz Warren is a victim of that, because they're coming out on both sides, and now she's trying to sway the vote using women. And you know what? I'm offended by that, because I know I've worked with Scott Brown since 2004. He was a good senator when he was here. You know, he worked well with us. He has always been on the side of women and victims of crime and everything else. And you know what? That is disingenuous on her side.
well, that's fine. But for Scott Brown to say that he's for the working man when he voted against 2 jobs bills, he's voted
I
against.
think we already discussed
Well,
those
but
jobs,
he's
bills.
he's
you
voted
know.
he's voted against the tax breaks for getting rid of the tax breaks for big oil. Forbes magazine calls him the 11th most banker-friendly senator in the Senate. That to me doesn't tell me that he's in favor of the little guy, because the bankers have been taking advantage of us for way too long. And that's part of the reason why the economy tanked the way it did, was because the bankers were lending money to people who they shouldn't have lent to because they were just so greedy, and they were telling all these people.
Well, let's let our legislature take some responsibility for that. You know, because you know what, there are people out there who had no business getting mortgages, and that's
I
because
agree with you, but
that wasn't all the banks, John. Okay, that wasn't all the banks.
Right.
Well, my
banks
last
are-
word is Google his Senate record.
Yeah,
I've
sure.
seen his Senate record.
Yeah,
I
so
follow
have
his
I,
Senate
so
record,
have
and
I.
And I like
I'm
it.
confident that
Exactly.
you know what.
Well, you read
I
a
feel good
different
about
one
it.
than
I got
did.
I got what I voted for. He's an independent
Exactly.
Well, I
voter.
didn't vote for him, so
and,
I
and
didn't
I
get
got
what
what
I voted
for.
for.
So,
You know what I think of him.
Exactly.
and I am not unhappy.
And Nick, what do you
so.
think of?
Well, you know, again, I think Laurie just said it best. He's an independent voice. You know, have I agreed with everything he has voted for? No. I'll stand there 100%. He is not. There's some things that I was upset that but he's an independent voice, and he's going to vote what he thinks is best for the state of Massachusetts. And he has done that. You know, in all of his reasonings, when he has voted against things that some of the items that John just mentioned that John didn't like, there was a reason behind it, and specifically why it wasn't good for Massachusetts. I honestly believe that he will vote for this state. To be honest with you, I think Professor Warren is not going to do that. She is going to toe the party line down in Washington, and I don't support that whatsoever. I just don't support that. If Scott Brown just towed the party line, okay, and just followed that path, he wouldn't get my full support either.
Yeah.
I'm not into that.
Great,
I'm not.
Thanks. We have just a few minutes left, unfortunately. And one of the other interesting races we have going on right now is more local. We have a state Senate race going on. Senator Fargo, after many years of serving as our senator, is not running again this year. And we have Mike Barrett, who won a very competitive primary with 5 candidates to be the Democratic nominee, Mike Barrett of Lexington. And we have Sandy Martinez of Chelmsford being the candidate again, I think for about the 4th time for
Fifth,
the.
I think. It might be the 5th time.
I thought it was 4th, but it
That's
may
right.
be
No,
right.
you may be right.
Well,
That's- you may
anyway,
be correct.
notwithstanding,
Yep.
it's for the
More
U.S.
than
Senate,
three.
the Republican, yeah, for the Republican nomination. So what are your thoughts about Sandy Martinez and Mike Barrett? Quickly, please. Quick comments, thoughts?
Quick comment, when I knew that Alex Buck was running and Sandy were running, my comment was to vote for Chelmsford. And I still stand by that. Vote for Chelmsford. We need a rep in Boston, and I want that rep, period.
I just think that I philosophically disagree with Sandy Martinez so much, and to be honest with you, when Sarah and I lived in Reading, North Reading, that's the first time he ran for state rep, and he actually lived down the block from us, so we supported him, Mike Barrett, back then. He's got a proven track record, and he's sort of a more moderate Democrat. I just think that I don't think that Sandy has a chance of winning in this district, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that her position is too right wing for most of the people in Massachusetts, and you know, so that's just my take on it.
Any other thoughts?
I'm pro-choice. You know, I think some of the issues we don't agree on, but like Nick, I think Chelmsford's the way to go.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the other thing is there was Melissa's bill in the Senate, and I know that when Mike Barrett came out, he said that he would have voted with the governor. The governor chose to, well, he wanted to put a provision in the bill that would give judges more discretion. So, and that, you know, that I wasn't
That
happy
doesn't
with that.
appeal to you much.
I
Yes,
wasn't happy
yeah,
with that
yeah.
decision, but
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I understand, yeah.
Well,
you don't have to.
No, well, I feel like John does. I don't really think Sandy can carry any of the rest of the district, and I don't really know. I sound like one of those awful people, but I'm assuming I will vote for Barrett because at least he's been there before. He has a track record.
Yes.
He has experience. It's not like you know the first year that you're there, you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's probably where I'm going, and mainly because I don't think Sandy can win. You know, through the.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Like, as everyone knows, when we started the show, the election is 3 weeks from the date we're taping this show. And to me, it's like the most exciting time of the year when you have the presidential race, we have U.S. Senate, we have Congress, we have state Senate.
You should be moderating the debate tonight.
Oh, I wish I
Not this
was.
debate,
That'd
that
be
one.
nice.
Because
You
I
do a
have a
better
couple
job.
of criticism with David Gregory, the way he hosted that U.S. Senate race. I didn't like spending the first 10 minutes on that Indian issue. Do
Yeah.
you remember that? Did you watch
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
debate?
I just thought
We,
that was
and you know how
unfair
much
to come out
time we
with
spent
that
on
out of the gate.
Afghanistan? Well, we have people
Dying.
dying,
Right,
getting
dying.
Exactly.
named, spending $2 billion a week or something, and they spend like a minute on
I
that.
know.
It was outrageous, I think. But that's what it is now. People, these issues that people think, oh, they'll tune in for or something. But no, so I'm critical of some of these moderators, you know. And Jim Lear, he was a nice guy and everything, the presidential debate, you know, but.
I didn't think he did a bad job.
No,
because he stayed out of it.
Yes.
Well,
That's what he's supposed to do, stay out of it.
I think he let them sort of run off a little bit too much. I
A
think
little bit too much.
it would have
But
been.
you know, yeah, it did turn out to be.
But
yeah, sorry.
the interesting thing is that the moderator tonight, both parties are very concerned about.
Right.
Yeah,
And
because
is
she
it-
wants to be involved, and it's like,
Yeah,
you should be
and she
involved.
should be for
Right.
follow-up questions
Exactly,
to make
that
sure.
type of stuff. But
Yeah,
you know.
it's for, well, hopefully this will turn out well, this town meeting debate tonight, I hope. And I'll be riveted to the screen, I know, as soon as they get out of my other meeting. But we have a couple of minutes about this other race, the U.S. Congress race. Nikki Songus running for re-election and Jonathan Golnick running a second time as a Republican nominee. Any thoughts about that race, U.S. Congress?
Nikki's very popular in Lowell, and I don't see anybody getting the votes against her in Lowell. I mean, you
I
know.
looked at him last year, last time, whenever that was.
Yes, yeah, a couple of years.
2 years ago,
Right.
4 years ago,
However
whatever it
long
was. They all run together, and I thought about him, but I don't know where I'm going. I'm one of those undecided
Oh.
people.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm not a huge proponent of John Golnick. You know what I mean? I can take it or leave it, but I just so much dislike Nikki Songus for a couple of reasons. One of them is I've tried to contact her office on 3 or 4 occasions, never got a return call.
Yeah,
Really?
I
When
have a hard
someone
time
doesn't
getting a
respond to me,
response.
Wow.
I'm done.
You called and
I
they didn't
call the
return?
office,
Wow.
no return calls.
Interesting.
So, and that was twice in the last, probably twice in the last year. You know, to talk about issues in regards to, you know, getting funds for the school and trying to see what we can do on the federal side. Because, you know, you listen to all these stories that all these schools are getting federal monies and you're just trying to get some information.
Yeah.
Nothing, no return call.
Wow, that's
So, you know
amazing.
something, when someone doesn't listen to me, they don't get my vote.
Yeah?
And
Wow.
Done deal.
Well, they returned my email.
Sure, well, you're the man.
Maybe I'm.
You're Carmen
No.
Cristiano.
Even I return Carmen.
Right, right.
I'm afraid not to answer this.
Yeah,
you
when
know?
you said
The Godfather,
quick
right?
response,
Exactly.
I said I better quickly respond.
And you did. You were
You
the
bet I
first
did.
one. Yeah. Well, we only have a couple of minutes left. Then we had a town meeting, as I mentioned, it was last night. It got over. I left here like 11:30 that night, but the meeting. They just go on, and we're going to continue it Thursday night. But a lot happened on Monday. But I want to quickly mention a couple of unusual things, which was Tom Moran going up to there was 2 microphones there, and saying to the town moderators, a point of order, you know, we shouldn't have 2 microphones. I was part of the Rules Committee. Any thoughts about that? Does anybody agree with, or Tom, or disagree with that?
My understanding is that the moderator runs the meeting, and I may not agree with what the moderator does, but it's, you know, you elect a guy and he's trying to make things interesting. And from one perspective, except for the fact that one of those microphones was just feedback all night.
Yeah.
But I did like the idea of the fact that you could have one person pro and one person con.
Yeah, and
so you could
alternate
have
them.
some balance. But I didn't think it was appropriate for Tom to do that. He should have talked to him privately. That's my
Oh.
opinion on it.
I can't believe our time is right. This is an amazing show. I hope everybody watches it. If you just watch the end of it, you got to watch the first 45 minutes of this show. It's fantastic. And I really do hope I could get this panel on again. I'm going to write it in my journal when I get home. And if you don't mind, would you guys mind doing
Oh, only if the dog comes.
Yeah, right. I mean, she's been great.
She's supposed to keep it calm, but I don't
When,
know.
yeah, she's great.
I feel her
Well,
soon.
when Nick was getting too
Thank you.
excitable, went and barked at him.
Thank you.
Dogs
Thank
I'm
you.
Italian, that's not exciting. trust
I
me.
can't close the show, it looks like, but thank you, that's fine. But thank you, Jon Kurland, for being here again. Thank you, Laurie Myers. Thank you, Nick DeSilvio.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Peggy Dunn. And thanks our wonderful crew, George and Azora and Larry, and our director, Pete Padula. If you have any comments on the show, please send me an email at tchristiano@comcast.net. I'm looking forward to this next debate. Our next show probably is going to be our post-election analysis show, though we have a great panel lined up. Looks like we have about 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, so it'll be very fair, and it's going to be 1 week after the November 6th election. So thank you very much for watching. Carmen Cristiano, also known as Carm, also known as Tom, also known as the Godfather, saying ciao.